You are listening to the audio portion of the QB Power Hour webinar series. The QB Power Hour is a free biweekly webinar series for accounting professionals presented by Michelle Long and Dan DeLong, who are very passionate about the industry, QuickBooks, and apps that integrate with QuickBooks. You can find out all the details about the webinar series at qbpowerhour.com. So without further ado, here's Michelle and Dan.
Welcome everybody to another QuickBooks Hour, QB Power Hour, and our panelist is looking for their panelist link. So frantically trying to find the panelist link to be able to have extra folks joining us here today. But as we're talking about today, we're talking about client collaboration inside of QuickBooks Online Desktop. This is one of the token desktop heavy versions of the QB Power Hour. So we'll actually be talking a lot about desktop. Today, we could finally get our panelist in here. So I apologize for that. So a little bit about myself. My name is Dan DeLong, owner of Danwit and School of Bookkeeping. Worked at Intuit for nearly 18 years. And now doing things on my own, co-hosting Workshop Wednesdays, and also doing the feature deep dive guest hosting at the Unofficial QuickBooks Accountant podcast. Mathew is unable to attend today. We look forward to seeing him back here. And we'll let Sarah join us. When she joins, introduce herself. But she should be joining shortly. A little bit about QB Power Hour. Every other Tuesday, we don't do live CPA. That is all done through our Earmark partnership. There is a link there for the channel there on Earmark. And so our agenda, I was confused by the TBD because I thought I updated that in the slides. But today we'll be talking about the Intuit news will be the changes in the pricing for QuickBooks Online. And here comes Sarah. Hooray. We'll be talking about the Intuit news, the pricing changes, and the agents. We'll do a little deeper dive into the Intuit agents on the workshop tomorrow if you want to join us for that. But today we'll be talking about working with clients in both QuickBooks Online and Desktop. So we'll be talking about the invitation process for QuickBooks Online, and then unpacking a little bit about the Desktop accountant version, the accountant copy process, and different ways to collaborate and work in your QuickBooks Desktop clients. Now, Sarah, thank you for joining us. Looks like you're muted though.
The only thing I could think of is maybe the invite went to quarantine.
Oh.
I have some new security things set up with the new laptops or my new Microsoft 365. So maybe we'll have to get with the IT director and find out what's wrong there.
That would be your husband, wouldn't it?
And that'd be Mark.
All right. So introduce yourself for the folks that don't know who Sarah is today.
Yes, I've been a public accountant for over 40 years and one of the first ProAdvisors with Desktop. Way in the beginning, I started with DOS Quicken. So I've been working with Intuit for the long haul. And then, and surprise, I semi-retired on June 30th. I have my full charge bookkeeping, CAS division, and my bookkeepers on one part. And then I was doing consulting and I love playing with technology and programs and all. And so my employees have all brand new jobs. They're all happy as clams. So I'm looking forward to some traveling and
all right.
I'm not going anywhere.
We will still see you around, but
Absolutely.
not as heads down into client work as you were in the counties.
Exactly.
Well, excellent. And one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on the show is for the time and the legacy that you've been using QuickBooks Desktop. You wrote an really eloquent post on our Facebook group, so much so that Intuit asked us to take it down, and we refused.
Post was that?
It was one where you were talking about your disappointment. I guess is the nicest way to talk about the sunset or the discontinuation of the enhanced payroll for accountants service. A couple of years ago.
Oh, was it?
And it was really, it really brought to light to myself of how impactful the degradation of the desktop client, where a lot of accountants and bookkeepers had really built their practice around desktop and working with clients. It really kind of, what I'm trying to say it the politest way possible. The transition and the replacement of these services in the cloud-based offering just really don't have the meat and potatoes, things that you found that were really great about those services.
Right.
Just really kind of boiled that up to the surface with these discontinuation of services that were marketed, geared towards full charge bookkeeping practices. And really, you're doing the lion's share of the entry and ultimately the outputs that you're doing for your clients was having a big impact.
Huge impact. But the name of my business is the Accounting Services Bureau, where we are that's what the IRS used to call companies like us back in the day. Were service bureaus. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. But we are the accounting office. The clients never see the ledger. They don't see the software. They don't care about the software. So that's been the model for so many years, is that we do all the payroll, the AR, everything. We're, like I said, we are their accounting office. So that shifted, and it wasn't so much going to the cloud because that was cool. And everything that comes with having SaaS software. But the model of us, of one firm taking care of many clients, shifted to the software belongs to the client, and then we're invited into their software. And it was a lot, which is dangerous to me, is because when you have the clients have control over their data, then they're going in and they don't, depending on the client, may not know what they're doing and very innocently do things that undo what we're doing. So it's a completely different way to do business. So it was like, part of it was that it's just not designed for firms to use the software to then provide services to multiple clients. And then you fall back to, you've got a product that's been on the market for decades. And the things I could do in little old Pro were just blowing. And then I always fall back to payroll and all the different allocations of payroll and really chopping up payroll I could use quantity for salary hours as percentages and, split it 15 different ways. I mean, as a nonprofit accountant, that was just amazing. So I guess what was so scary is not seeing anything replace that.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that we need to be on SaaS software. I understand that, but desktop still has a place. And so at this moment, everybody's on enterprise, but it's not knowing the future and trying to plan your business around unknown
changes and unknown timelines.
Time, how much is it going to cost? When are they going to put the hammer down? How do you plan? But anyway, yeah. And I'm vocal.
Well, yeah. And we appreciate your voice and that. I love you here. So I really appreciate you joining us here today. So let's talk a little bit about our Intuit news for the day. Unless you've been living under a rock, July 1st, because there's never a great time to launch new things for accountants and bookkeepers. And no one loves change better than accountants. Sarah. Big updates, July 1st, inclusive of pricing. And this is Intuit's first wave of introducing the Intuit not so secret agents, which is why I threw a little Get Smart reference in there. So there's 7 AI agents. We'll talk a lot more, a little deeper dive into them tomorrow on the workshop Wednesday over at School of Bookkeeping. But you may or may not see all of these based off of the different versions or different levels that you have inside of QuickBooks Online. So Simple Start doesn't get any agents. They kind of relegate that to the bank feeds. That's your AI taste inside of Simple Start. And you get a slight increase in the monthly cost of Simple Start for new subscriptions. Existing subscriptions, I think, are going to update in August as far as the monthly pricing. Essentials is going to go up to $10. It's going to increase $10 a month, not go up to $10. That would be a nice discount for that. And you think for Essentials, you get one agent, Plus has a few extra agents, and they get a $15 increase. And Advanced gets $40 increase and gets all 7 AI agents. Again, we'll talk a little bit more detail as to what those agents are and what they're designed to do. They do have some pretty nifty features, but from what I've seen on the Facebook group, the reviews have been mixed at best. We'll talk more on the QB Power Hour for the Power Hour that's focused on the Intuit changes. So they're there. If rolling out, and as far as existing client access, you may see them right away, or it may be rolled out. It really just typically the rollout schedule is new people get it first, and then existing clients from ease of complexity of their data get it into the most complex. They get it last. The ones that really need it the most tend to be at the back of the line, unfortunately. So let's start off with our first polling question. What version of QuickBooks do you support with your clients? I'm guessing since we're at about 100 participants here today, most folks are in the desktop realm, but I may be or at least on the boat. Typically over the time that we've seen is the QuickBooks only, our percentage is getting smaller and smaller. Now, do you have clients that are on QuickBooks Online? Do you help with QuickBooks Online as well?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a great fit for the right client.
Right. $45 seconds or so. Now you have a TBX. Talk a little bit about your TBX software that you
I
have
wrote
for the trial balance.
Trial Balance Exporter, TBX. It's Matthew's going to kill me. It's the fastest, easiest way to get summary data at a desktop. That was my little elevator thing. Yeah, I wrote it many, many years ago. I couldn't get a trial balance with the net change. It only did as of. And when I had QuickBooks for bookkeeping and creative solutions for my write-up, and I wanted to switch to QuickBooks for the actual day-to-day, I needed to export journal entries into creative solutions. So I called a programmer. I didn't know what I was doing. I told him what I needed, and we wrote this little program in 2005. And it's morphed into a great little app that works with desktop. But it's mainly used for migrating monthly journal entries for history going to either QBO or Sage and Intact and NetSuite. And so, yeah, as long as desktop's alive, I'm in business.
Let me go ahead and share the results here. So it looks like about 25% are QuickBooks Online only, and the rest are mattered or split between supporting both. Sole holdouts for 6% desktop, QuickBooks Desktop only. So let's go ahead and kick off our main topics here, working with clients. Start with QuickBooks Online because that's the easiest one to explain. Really, all you're dealing with is an accountant user, right? So the biggest platform difference between QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop is with desktop, you have to download something, you have to install it, you have to make sure it's in the right environment, that everything that you're putting it on is up to date. QuickBooks Online, as long as you have a supported web browser, and that's up to date. And internet access, you're able to access your QuickBooks in the cloud. With an accountant user, you can invite your client, or clients can invite you to give you access as an accountant user. It's a non-billable user, so the user allotments that you're given as far as the number of users that you're allowed to invite and have access to your QuickBooks Online. Accountant users are non-billable, and at least 2 users or 2 accountant users can be invited. QuickBooks Online Advanced gives you access to 3. Once the accountant invitation is accepted within your QBOA firm, you can have virtually an unlimited number of users as team members. So you can invite people as team members, or you have your client or team members at your own firm, and they dovetail off of that one accountant invitation with the client. This allows you to work concurrently with the client, which allows, I guess it does have its own double-edged sword, right? While they're working in live data, you're also working in live data. So sometimes that makes a little challenge, especially when you're running reports and those types of things, if the numbers keep changing because they're entering in data at the same time. There's the video here for how to invite accountant users, as well as a link there for the Intuit account.
This is Shanna.
Demonstration. But it's not all rainbows and butterflies, as the meme is talking about here. Sometimes those invitations aren't received, much like Panelist invites to your
technology. Gotta love it.
Sometimes there's a typo in the email address. And of course, that if there's a typo in the email address, it's never going to get to you. Sometimes your husband has a filter or
Filters.
junk or spam, because these invitations are being sent out of the QuickBooks Online system, which if that is not allowed to pass through your email program, whatever that happens to be. Those things can get quarantined or not deliverable. And of course, accepting the account invitation sometimes has its challenges, which will tend to result in a cache issue or browser extensions getting in the way. A lot of times people had some success by accepting them on their phone or their mobile device. Once it's accepted, then you're able to log into the client's subscription or their QuickBooks Online. Any best practices that you've had over your 40 years of accountant invitations, Aaron?
The trick about answering it on your phone, responding on your phone, which tells me it's a browser.
Yeah.
The browser and the connection. It's touchy. Isn't it touchy?
All right. So we're going to launch our second poll question. What has been your experience with
Well, I'd like to see
the
that.
accountant invitation? So we'll see how that is. Now, the other way is, of course, if you create the subscription inside QBOA, you become the invited accountant user, the get-go. So that is a way to avoid this whole challenge of the invite, accepting the invite by creating those subscriptions inside of QuickBooks Online directly. And then, of course, you can also be primary admin, sure that the client is the primary admin, say, accept that mantle primary admin. So you have no issues with the invitation, but you, of course, now are transferring the acceptance of the invitation and the challenge of which to the client as opposed to you. But if that's part of your engagement, typically to set up the subscription or set up QuickBooks, that might be the best practice to work around that.
People are saying we need to select more than one. I love the invites have ghosted me.
Oh, I thought I did set this up as a multiple choice. Oh, well, I thought it was a multi-select option.
Well, any of us in public accounting understand that being ghosted.
Yeah, but sometimes they just aren't received. Yeah. And that leads to those challenges of
They don't check their email.
Yeah. Check spelling or when everything hinges on accepting of an invitation, it just exacerbates the problem. Go ahead and close the poll here and share the results. It looks like the most is getting an error.
What is that?
Those errors are never specific, right? It's either like, that didn't work.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You have an error. What's the error?
All right. So let's get to the meat and potatoes of this and working with clients in QuickBooks Desktop. So let's first talk about the accountant version. So the accountant version is a version edition of QuickBooks Desktop that gives a host of accountant only tool, where it's the client data review, which is a collection of tools and resources that accountant will use. There is a built-in, sorry for using the abbreviation, I should have spelled it out, fixed asset manager. There's no fam.
Not your family?
No, fam. But it's a fixed asset manager, which is a depreciation calculator built into QuickBooks. Allows you to utilize the depreciation schedule and post those journal entries back to QuickBooks. The lovely reclassification tool, much the same as what we see inside of QuickBooks online, writing off of invoices, calculating that to bad debt. It's important to note that the write-off tool inside of desktop is different than it is inside of QuickBooks online. How it writes it off, where it will actually write it off in the current period as opposed to going back
The past?
the past, which is a no-no.
Who does that?
Especially on things that are where the tax return's already been filed. Really cool tool that Michelle would be super proud of, the find and fix tax payments, because she helped create, so, with her feedback on that, being able to fix incorrectly recorded sales tax payments. And then this tool of fixing unapplied customer and vendor payments is a really nice function. It's not as one click as one would hope, but it does allow you to do that on customer or vendor basis. And that's an unused tool. I've never seen anybody actually use it. This troubleshoot of inventory has a lot of really robust options inside of the accountant tools, being able to tell what and if something is in a negative quantity and being able to fix that.
I'll tell you one more.
Oh,
If you're in the accountant's version, if you're in the accountant's version, you can toggle over to any of the other flavors of QuickBooks and see the screens that your client sees. That's really good for trouble.
That is a good one. Yes, you can toggle the different versions. When they say, well, I clicked on the job costing center, and what job costing center, where are you at? Good call out there. The accountant copy process, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is only available in the accountant's version. And you're able to export journal entries as an importable file. Right? This is one of those, I forgot this was a possibility type of feature.
Mm-hmm.
But it does require the accountant's version, which comes with your desktop ProAdvisor membership. So when you add that on as an option, you do have access to this version. And also as an active desktop ProAdvisor, if you don't have the accountant version, but you are an active ProAdvisor desktop member and your client is using Active Pro or Premier, it does allow you to log into those accountant tools inside of your client as your use, if you are the accountant user, and see some of these tools in your client file. Talk about how that might happen in collaborating with your client. But that particular version of QuickBooks, does need to be, again, downloaded, installed locally on your machine. And if you're out of luck, unless you're using some kind of virtual terminal where it's allowing you to install a Windows-based application in your Macintosh, or you just bite the bullet and buy Windows-based machine so that you can do that. So some of the options is working independently with your clients, where you are working with a backup, and these chats are looking back and forth between the client and the accountant here. This is the ping pong event, right? So when the client sends you a backup or a portable file, that data needs to be sent back and forth to you, which means that once the backup's been made, your client really shouldn't be making any changes, because when that file comes back, those changes not going to be importable into that file. So this is something to clearly communicate with your client. Sarah, have you ever worked with clients in this case where you're sending the backup file back and forth?
Oh, I remember that pain. Well, you send them a file and they restore it. They don't know where they restored it. Then, they have so many QBW files on the machine, when you send it back. I used to do tricks like, I'd say, send me a backup. Don't touch your data until I'm done. And then I would put $1 million check with a check number that said, delete me. And I'm like, if you don't see that $1 million check to delete, you're in the wrong data. I mean, you start learning anything that you. But that was one thing that we did. But yeah, passing these. Oh, how about with CDs and was always it wasn't just send me a QB.
Yeah, they'll send you a hard disk.
Hard disk.
So that has its own host of problems. And then typically it's where the file is, what file needs to be open, especially if they're in a multi-user environment. Do our other people have access to that file? They renamed it when it restores. A lot of challenges with that.
That was before Zoom. See, now we could at least see what they're doing. So yeah. We were blind.
Yeah, remote access is a godsend, being able to see what exactly it is that they are doing with the screen sharing aspect. Mm-hmm. So the next option is working independently through this accountant copy process. So it allows for co-working, and I put a side-by-side washer dryer here. So you have these things separated so to indicate that the way things will work for it in this case is the client chooses what's called the dividing date. And the theory, I'm going to use air quotes here, is that the theory is that anything after that dividing date, the client will be able to work in on their local installation of QuickBooks, and everything prior to that date is what the accountant will be able to work in. So when it's in that condition where there is a dividing date, there are some restrictions, because when the change file comes back, and then a couple other slides about this whole process, the file needs to be in the same condition of when that export or that change file that was sent out was in. And that's part of the challenge of what happens in this whole process, is that something has changed from the time the file was sent to the accountant to when the changes are trying to be brought back into QuickBooks. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But with this is one of the few versions or processes or workflows that allows you to work in a different year's version of QuickBooks. So your client could be on 2023 and you could be on 2024. And this whole process, again, in theory, should work. Being able for them to send you the file, you turn it into an accountant's copy file, you make your changes and send the file back into an older version of QuickBooks of 2023. Now it's only for the 1 year prior, right? And since 2022, it's now been discontinued anyway. It's really a moot point because we only have 2023 and 2024 as desktop versions to work with anyway. And if you are an active ProAdvisor, there is a web service that's available, which streamlines the process of sending these files back and forth and importing the changes. So, Sarah, have you ever used the web service for transferring accountants' copies back?
When it first came out, I think the problem I have is clients will create an accountant's copy, which, limits what they can do in their own books. And then I go, well, is your tax accountant going to send changes back? No, but they asked for a copy and so I made an accountant's copy. And so, yeah, I see that probably more than I see anything else, because it can be a little buggy, and a lot of accountants have abandoned it, I think.
The basic process is the client enters the dividing date, creates the file, sends to the accountant. I typoed there. So it's a QBX file it's the file extension, and that can be sent the hard way with an actual disk or email. Oh, that's not secure, but it doesn't stop people from doing it because it's a very small file. It allows you to send that transfer file. And then there's also the web service that allows you to do that. The accountant restores the file, they make their changes, and they export the file back to the client, which creates a QBY file, which can again either be sent file exchange or also the web service. And then hopefully the client gets to import those changes. Well, it sounds great. It's one of those things that it either works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't work, the promise or the likelihood of getting those transactions into your client's QuickBooks file is, when somebody would call and say, well, I'm trying to import my client's changes, which I have this look of Jason Sudeikis here, right? Cross my fingers and maybe hope that it brought these in, because ultimately what happens is that something had changed. The client updated their file. Maybe they updated their version because while the changes were out, a new version came out. So decided to update their QuickBooks, or as you mentioned, Sarah, there's restrictions, and they tried to do something. They tried to resort their list, or they tried to do something, and it said, well, we can't do that because you've got these account restrictions.
They turn it off.
They'll turn it off, and there's a warning message that says you won't be able to import your changes. So I'll just go ahead and make another accountant's copy and hope for the best. That's not the same. That's not the same as when it left, just putting it back into that condition. And then that causes that.
Pretty frustrating to lose all your work from the account.
Yeah. It's you don't end up having any nice conversation when you find out that the client removed the restrictions, is that there's no way to prove it either.
That may be why some accountants, or why I abandoned, is you get stung once and you don't risk it again.
Yeah. Only once. Shame on me.
Yeah.
I will not be fooled twice. But when those transactions, and there's a PDF process in all of this. So as you know, the PDFs, creating PDFs in QuickBooks Desktop is reliant on Windows systems and drivers and those types of things. So there's a lot of challenges that could potentially go wrong with that. But if they're unable to bring in those transactions, there's really no chance of importing those changes. Oftentimes the customer reconciled their bank account and one of those transactions was past the dividing date, which then causes those reconciliations to be rolled back. So a lot of redoing of work that was already done, and nobody likes to do that anymore.
You don't like redoing.
Yeah. Now, one saving grace, again, is if your changes are all journal entries, you can always, even if those changes don't come in through the import process, you can send those changes as a QBJ file, and those are able to be imported as well. So as maybe not all of your changes are able to be salvaged, any journal entry, regardless of whether or not they were able to be brought in properly, can be sent through this journal entry process. So most of the time, people want to work in the same file at the same time. So you have a host of options. We have a host of options when it comes to that. One is working on site, being physically at the location.
Get in a car and drive over there.
Right. The other is online cloud hosting, which allows you to be in a virtual environment at the same time. Another is remote access, where you're physically taking out the car out of the equation and being able to remote access. And then, sponsor today, best of both, or like the best option is Qbox. And a lot of people will be wondering, what is Qbox? So we'll be talking about that at the end. You're a big fan of Qbox. What would you say, is one of the main reasons that you like the Qbox of all of these options?
Well, there's benefits in every kind of concurrent uses. But the Qbox turned out to be the least expensive, and actually sharing the data file with remote workers is just a brilliant idea. And concurrently, if the first thing I ask is, how many do you have users that are in the data file doing work at the same time? And chances are, with a small company, they're not working at the same time. Unless they're in a local office where they're in multi-user mode. Sometimes Qbox is like a take turn idea. Yeah, it's brilliant the way it's designed.
Well, let's run through some of these other options before we talk a little bit more heavy about Qbox. On-premises work. I don't think this is an ideal.
Do that, Linda.
They still do it, but you're physically present. You're focused only on that client. There's additional considerations with rotating of workstations, the license. You were talking about yesterday. Client is hovering over, helicoptering behind you.
Yeah.
But you have the consideration of time and mileage. But it's the best way to work together with your client because you're there.
And
so it's easy to ask some questions.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Source documents at your fingertips. You got the client right there. I mean, yeah, a lot of value.
Yeah.
But you have to be the type accountant that's willing to get in the car and go.
Wants to do that.
Yeah.
Client needs to value that that type of client interaction well. And
What you just said, but they give me free lunch every time I go.
Now, cloud hosting. This is where you are virtually present.
Mm-hmm.
You can multitask. There is a cost implication to all of this. Additional logins, not just for you, but also for
everybody has to pay. Yeah.
Everybody's got to be on that in that situation. The infrastructure is going to be handled by the host.
Mm-hmm.
So the updating, multi-user access, which is really a double-edged sword, right? Because then you've also got a duplication of utilities potentially, on their local workstation, as well as in that same environment.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to transfer files back and forth now is another consideration. Printing is now a challenge because we're printing from a virtual environment to a local printer that's installed maybe not even at my office, and is the most costly, but also the most convenient way to work together. Mm-hmm. And there's a host of hosts that allow you to do that. Mm-hmm. Now, remote access, again, is where you are virtually present. This could be any of the solutions that we have listed in there, but the infrastructure and access is handled by the client in this case, as opposed to the hosting provider. So they need to make sure that they're updated that they're multi-user access. The wastage of time to figure out who is in the file in single user mode is hunting around the office looking for that. I got to switch to single user mode. Who's logged in as the admin in single user mode? Trying to find those folks. But you have a host of challenge or a host of options where it's log me in, go to my PC, /top, team viewer. But there's a consideration of attended or unattended mode, where you have a dedicated workstation for you. But again, it takes that driving out of the physically being there. There's no time and mileage with just you getting there. Typically, you log in. You also have
to
those.
Consider where you're logging in. If you're bumping somebody off of their machine and like, hey, I need to work, and then they're wandering around behind your, waiting because they can't even check their email. That's a consideration. And unintended mode, we use that a lot I have clients that really need hand-holding as a controller. Everybody I have, they call and they go, can you help me with something? Click. Boom, I'm on their desktop. There's benefits there.
All right. So let's talk about Qbox, which is kind of like the best of both worlds. It's the Hannah Montana of these options here, because it allows you to work locally, but access your clients virtually, right? So the file is actually going to be stored online. And you have a really interesting way to talk about this using policemen, right?
Policemen. Right. Because then people think that Qbox is a hosted server, that you're actually dialing into Qbox to work on QuickBooks. It's not that. It's like Dropbox and OneDrive and Google Drive on steroids. Okay. So basically the QuickBooks file is in a syncing folder on your local PC. So Qbox is in charge of handing out that file to all the users. And I consider it a police officer. So basically
a traffic cop.
Okay. It's a traffic cop. It's a traffic. Yeah, exactly. Not a police officer. It's a traffic cop. So in other words, it's not doing anything to your QuickBooks file. So everybody has to have QuickBooks on their PC. Everybody has to have a copy of the data file. The trick is who's got the master copy. What it does is you can say, I'm going to work. And it says, okay. Then they call it lock. You lock the file, say, I'm in here working. And the traffic cop, if anybody else on their machine across town or the next office goes into QuickBooks and tries to open that file, it'll go, Sarah's working. You come in all you want. You can look and print, view, leave it open all day long if you want. But when Sarah's done working, everything that she's done is now going to sync up to Qbox and back down and overwrite your copy. So it keeps everybody in sync with the most current copy of QuickBooks.
Yeah.
The brand.
I used to think like a best way to describe it was like the data file was like a library book, in that you check it out.
In and check out.
You check it in and check out. But when I was talking with Allison over at Coral Tree, that I didn't realize that the clients could actually still open their company file.
Yeah, it has it checked out. It's really a warning system.
Yeah. So like the client can actually still open, they can view their data, they can run reports, but just with that caveat of if they enter any transactions, which they can still do, their changes are going to be overwritten, because the person who has the lock file associated with them, once they're finished, it checks that library book back into the library. And now everybody has the same library book again, as far as the data is concerned. So it does allow you to, it's kind of like, and we were talking yesterday, it's kind of like that closing date, setting that closing date on the client's books. Those warnings persist and say, hey, you can do this, but it's not a great idea.
Good idea.
Then you're able to make these changes, but bear in mind, you're going to lose those changes if you do make those changes in the company file. So you had an interesting scenario where the client was just opening up QuickBooks first thing in the morning.
That's what I find is clients, they come in, they turn on the computer, they open up, then they just turn on QuickBooks and they just have the file open all day long. And so I realized that you're not 99% of them, they're not just working in QuickBooks all day long. And so it turns out that they like it open in case a vendor calls or a customer calls and they can look something up. So once I figured that out, the Qbox worked out beautifully because I'm like, just don't take the lock. And you can have it open all day long and help your clients all work. Or they'll have it locked, they'll do some work and it's been locked all day. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to work after 5. Can I have the file? And I'll call and I say, are you working? Or can you pop out, let me work for a while? And so they'll release the lock and then I get their copy and then I can go to work. So yeah, and I know that people are thinking, well, why can't I just put the QuickBooks file in OneDrive? Why can't I just put it in a Dropbox? I'll tell you why. Because these syncing programs sync continuously. When you're sharing a document in a Dropbox, it's syncing that one file continuously. QuickBooks wasn't designed that way. That QuickBooks file isn't just the QBW file. There's all these little hidden files, and it's writing to those files as you work. And if you have it in a syncing folder, a normal syncing folder, it can corrupt your QuickBooks file. So Qbox doesn't do any syncing until you log off, say, I'm totally done, and then it goes and puts all the files up and out. So that's the difference between any other syncing folder. And they've got a patent on this. So,
and those syncing programs are not supported. That it's not a great idea to try to fool QuickBooks by using file transfer, large file storage online system.
Right.
And we were talking yesterday about some of the bonuses of Qbox. Now, the pricing model is it's per client.
Per folder.
Necessarily per client, but per folder. And then you'll have a folder, company file per company folder per company, per client, sorry. And then as you add clients, then there's additional charges based off of that.
Right.
But some of the bonuses is that it saves 20 versions of that company file. Talk a little bit about that. Right. So it's kind of like an online backup service without paying for an online backup.
Exactly. So I do two things. I either have a client folder that I share with the client, or sometimes I'll say, you know what? Why don't you get the account with Qbox? You own your QuickBooks file, and then you share it with me. So I also have it that way. So I have Accounting Services Bureau and all these clients, but then I have another client that has shared with me. And if they ever leave me, they just turn me off. Poof, my file's gone. The other so in this day and age of getting nickeled and dimed for every user and every little feature, they are so generous. So when they sync a file up, they're saving 20 different renditions. If you have any reason you need to roll back, like corrupt data, or, any of us that worked at desktop long enough know reasons to restore an old backup. It is one of the cheapest ways to get an off-site backup of your data. Yep. That's a good selling point, whether they want to use the Qbox or not.
And they do have a fully functioning trial without
Yes.
billing information.
No credit
necessary.
card.
So you can even check it out for with a no credit card required for it.
Mhm.
All right. I'll throw out the last poll question here. Would you like to learn more about Qbox? There, I really appreciate you joining us, even if it was a little late. But that's we'll have to wag our finger at your husband of not getting the panelist in.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Quite all right. It's a few things. We do have the QB Power Hour store. Next QB Power Hour, we're going to be having our first app showdown for all-in-one spending platforms. We'll be pitting Corpay One, which is a bill payment solution with a credit card management, spend management, all in one against RAM. So we'll be comparing those two.
Against them? Oh, RAM.
RAM. Yeah. So hopefully you can join us then for that one.
That's a fun
If you
one.
need specific questions about QuickBooks, learning QuickBooks your way, we have that over at the School of Bookkeeping. And you don't want to talk to Intuit? Well, there's someone else available for you to talk to, me. And we have some chat, email, daily, monthly, annual options. So School of Bookkeeping, and we can bundle your QBO subscriptions with it as well. And I did talk a little bit about what's happening next week. Anything you want to close us out with, Sarah?
I just remembered something we forgot to put on our bonus list. You can also share your document folder. In desktop, if you attach documents, it's in a completely separate folder, and there's a different technology to be able to share that. So if you have your source documents also attached to transactions in desktop, Qbox has it's a little extra cost, but you can actually share the source documents.
Nice. It's a good thing to know. Well, we appreciate you all joining us here today on the QB Power Hour, and we look forward to seeing you again. And love to, hopefully everybody has a great week ahead, and see you next time on QB Power Hour.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the QB Power Hour podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in our Facebook group. You can find those resources and much more at qbpowerhour.com.